to the Pink Floyd!
The Pink Floyd won't start before you all sit down there. Please sit down.
David Gilmour, guitariste et chef de Pink Floyd, avec Rick Wright, organiste, Roger Waters, bassiste, et Nick Mason, batteur.
If I can remember what it was that we were going to play next, I'd tell you, but I can't.
So today I'm with member 457 of the Pink Floyd fan club, if I remember correctly.
Yes, I would have been much, I had a much earlier or lower number, but I was rather sort of snobby about being a fan. You know, I actually joined because you could actually, I found out you could get lots of information, you know, about gigs that were coming up or radio broadcasts. I thought, well, it would be useful, but I didn't want to, you know, because in those days, particularly a fan was somebody, you had that, there was like a girl that would be screaming at a Beatles concert, you know. So I would have been a lower number, yeah, but you're right, yes. And I've actually got the letter here somewhere from the woman who was the secretary. I think it's
Carol.
Carol, that's it,
Yes.
Carol, yeah.
I tried to look up Carol.
Hand typed, you know, and so welcoming me to the fan club, and yeah, it was great. Yeah,
She was very diligent, was Carol, wasn't she?
oh yeah,
she
no, she was.
kept people
She
informed.
sent really good and newsletters and things like that. It was, you got things like the famous Christmas card with the signed by the Pink Floyd themselves, you know.
Yes. And one came with a little photograph of the band. Did you get that one at all?
I don't know if I got
Syd
the
and the
little
band.
I had a sort of brochure,
nice.
you know, with Syd Barrett. Although they sent it to you even after it must have been that period where it wasn't really sure.
Crossover.
Yeah, that he'd left it permanently or not. So they still used to send that out, or maybe they had a few left over, and before they did the new wave of publicity, etc. Yeah, but
I was looking through some papers recently, old correspondence from Carol Oliver, wasn't it? I think.
yeah, that's it.
Yeah, from Carol, and of course it had her address on it. So I thought, well, I'll look her up, see whether she's there. But the address still exists, but it's changed hands a couple of times since those days. So
and she might have got married or something, changed her surname. It's difficult to trace. She might still be there. I suppose I don't know. Obviously, I never met her, and I don't know what age group she was particularly. She's just
got to be your age at least.
Probably,
yeah. Yes.
I wondered. I thought she probably had secretarial skills or something, because obviously it was always properly typed and it was always very efficient sort of communication.
So today in this episode, I'm speaking to Greg Taylor. We've got a lovely view out the window of the High Street, which is a very fascinating High Street in St Leonard's in Sussex. Can I call it Sussex? Or
of course.
Refine it to East
Sussex,
Sussex would be better, wouldn't it? We've nearly got a view of the sea, and later on we're going down to the Piper Club to see Syd's floorboards. So it should be quite a generally rather interesting day.
Yeah, we've got
and we got some records around us.
With floorboards on the actual records.
I'm looking at the floorboards as we talk. Yes, I'm looking at Sauce Full of Secrets. I'm looking at Piper at the Gates of Dawn, and I see the Barrett album off to my right. It's a proper tribute to all things early Floyd. And that's hugely appropriate because Greg saw the band 16 times, no fewer than 16 times.
Yeah, maybe more. I'm just, there may be something that eluded me, but as far as I can remember, it was at least 16, yeah.
And was rather actively involved in some of those occasions as well.
Well, yes. I was so enthusiastic, that I either took photographs or sometimes taped them. And it wasn't to sell it or for fame or whatever else it might have been. It was just out of pure enthusiasm and just to have a record of it myself, and obviously the gigs, they always played differently. It was never the same twice. So each one had its own value because of that. It was like collecting rare nuggets, wasn't it, really?
So let's go to the beginning. Where
Yeah.
did it all begin for you, Greg?
Well, of course, I was. I've heard about the Pink Floyd. It was actually a moment of revelation. I used to stay up in London. My grandparents lived up there. And I was 15 at the time, and I'd go up there for half term or something. So I used always to go to all the trendy places, one of which was like King's Road. And I was walking down King's Road at the end of a long day, and it was about, I can always remember the time. It's just extraordinary, isn't it? About 4:45, 5:30. It was in October 1966, and there was at World's End, and it's still there. That space. You always used to be posters up on that particular piece of wall.
Right, events.
Yeah. So, and there was this poster, and which is you're familiar with, if you would have seen. Obviously it's been copied and reproduced as well. It says the Pink Floyd. Playing at All Saints Hall in Notting Hill Gate, and it was. I thought the Pink Floyd. That sounds like a really unusual name. There must be, and it said with fantastic effects on it. And I thought that also sounds really interesting. And I really seriously thought about going just to find out. But unfortunately, I lived down in Brighton area at that time on the south coast, and I was still at school, so I couldn't nip off and get away. I couldn't have got up to London. Of course, there was money as well would have been involved. So I remembered their name, and I thought I must find out more about that band.
Yes.
The Pink Floyd.
Yes, because it was very much at the front at the time, wasn't it?
So the next thing, that was how I did find out more about them, because obviously they weren't in any of the music papers at that time or anything like that. It was that IT International Times was. Underground newspaper that was produced at the time,
Was that available in Brighton?
No, they weren't. They were in London.
Right.
But
You
in
couldn't buy it there.
Brighton, there was a bookshop run by a guy called Bill Butler. He was American. He was an American poet, and he moved down to Brighton. Perhaps the rents were cheaper as well, and he opened this bookshop selling things like the beat writers, like William Burroughs, some poetry, obviously a bit sort of, offbeat or bohemian or anything. And he actually stocked International Times. He was the only person in Brighton in that days. It was quite sort of a new thing, wasn't it? And it was up to about number 5, I think, International Times at that point. And so it had only been going for a few months since, I think it started in the middle of 66. And interestingly, it was, I started leafing through this, and one of them had a report of the Pink Floyd playing, probably I don't know if it was the All Saints Hall gig or one of the other
gigs.
Early UFO gig. So I could read out more about them. So I started buying the International Times. Obviously, it was quite an extraordinary times, wasn't it? Psychedelic era beginning to emerge, So you like to get into the latest thing. And so I, from then on, regularly got the International Times, and there were articles or reports and things they'd done over time. So eventually, through all this chain of events, we found out that they're going to have a record as well, And that record, of course, was Arnold Lane when it did come out. And so I was a fan of the Pink Floyd before I saw them or before I heard their music.
Just from the name and from the...
Yeah, well, you've just had an instinct as well. These people are going to be something really worth...
An aura
following,
about that name.
Following, and so I was, champing at the bit, waiting for the record to come out, Arnold Lane. And of course, it did.
What did you make of it?
Well, now this is the interesting. Obviously, they played it a little bit on the radio. I think Radio London and Radio Caroline, they probably played it a bit. That's when I first heard it. Or maybe Radio Luxembourg even. I listened to it regularly, but sometimes when you were looking for something, you'd say, perhaps, you look at all channels and see if they're... And so I heard it first on there, and I thought, firstly, I liked it. I liked the idea that it was quite an interesting weird subject. I thought, well, this is promising. But I thought, in a way, it was a little bit more. I felt they were a little bit like the Kinks or something. The organ break was quite distinctive.
Yeah.
But I thought, yeah, they sound really interesting. So I literally bought Arnold Day the day it came out. You know, when it was this is a local record shop in Brighton, and of course I was great. And I looked on the back and it said "Candy in a Currant Bun." You know, I thought that's a strange title as well.
Yeah.
But that to me, so I played, obviously I'd heard of Arnold Lane, but the real life changer for me, and it's a Desert Island Discs for me as well, if I ever get invited on that as well, is Candy in a Currant Bun, because that, even now, is pretty out there, isn't it?
It is.
Even all these years later, it was so exceptional, that, you know, with all the electronics and all that sort of weird sort of whispering, shouting vocals, and it was just that was real pure Syd, wasn't it?
It gave you an insight into what you'd see at a concert, for example. In a way that Arnold Lane wasn't. That was just the hit single, wasn't it? Like See Emily Play was the hit single.
Yeah, but and I think sometimes people, that's true in a lot of bands. They're allowed to do something that might be the B side, so it's less compromised in a way. It could be, you know, foot down on the accelerator or whatever, you know, and really go. And I love that, and I probably played that side probably more than Arnold Lane, and I did play Arnold Lane. But then we had to wait for any other record, didn't we? There was a bit of a wait, wasn't there?
There was, until May.
Yeah,
Was
well,
it May? Yeah.
Yeah, with See Emily Play.
See Emily Play, it was May, wasn't it? I just think I've got an acetate with See Emily Play, and that's 23rd of May, so it's always that date.
Because there was games for May earlier in the.
So yes. We'll have to have a look for the precise date in Ed Pauli's book that you've got next to you as we're talking as well, because you contributed quite significantly to that as well with your knowledge, didn't you?
Oh yeah, well yes, because it's quite useful to actually have been there at the time, and I always say it's an interesting thing seeing things in real time, you know, or try and convey what it's like to see them in real time, because. You know, we've also, you know, the things we discover retrospectively, you can't imagine what a surprise, or how you know, you were, it was a very complicated sort of pathway, and that was part of the excitement, discovering what was coming next and how things reacted. And I think also, if you're a serious fan, in a way, I use that word rather reluctantly,
yes.
But you know, follower, if you like. There's a sort of interaction, isn't there, between the performers and they were certainly true with the Floyd, you know, because that group of people that supported them in London were very important, I think, as well. You know, you know, the UFO crowd or whatever, or some of the people in the art college and things like that. You know.
So they were to come to Brighton.
Well, yeah, that sort of was all entwined, wasn't it?
Yes.
So we had
Arnold. Got the single.
Yeah. You had the single, and then they were going to play in the Brighton Festival. So I thought I've got to go to that, and that sounded extraordinarily exciting. That did, because it was Hornsey College of Art had the Light and Sound workshop there, which was, you know, really quite a progressive thing to be doing, and they were given the West Pier to curate whatever they like, basically. So there was a ballroom, and there was the main, what would have been the theatre back in the day as well, on the end of the pier. So what they did, they had a big exhibition in what would have been the theatre. It was turned into a labyrinth of all kinetic light sculptures. Some of international artists that had done them. Anyway, it was a sort of thing. And I think there was a few people involved with Hornsey itself, Hornsey College students. And then the K4 Arena was in the ballroom, which incidentally was the same ballroom that later in the year was used to film Oh What a Lovely War.
Right.
They create the first, the sort of, the scenes in the big scenes where they're all sort of milling about and there's generals, you know, it's done in a very stylised sort of way. And that, if you ever see that film...
same space.
It is, it's literally the same.
So quite a big space
it was
occupied.
Well, they built a whole sort of structure within it. So there was this old Edwardian, quite spacious ballroom, but inside they built the kinetic arena, as it's called, which was like 360-degree circular screen with at least two entranceways, as far as I recall. Had a few, like 2 or 3 layers for seating, 3 rows perhaps, and then a sort of area which would be a dance area.
So was it a ticketed event? Did you have to
get
something in advance, or could you just walk up and go in?
No, you had to buy it. I think I bought it. They were selling them I don't know if they had a festival box office or there was a record shop as well. They often used to sell gigs tickets in the centre of the lanes in Brighton. So I was going to just finish the description of the arena,
please.
and the platform where they projected the lights from was suspended from the ceiling, so you could literally dance underneath it. So, which I don't think I've ever seen since. Actually, that sort of idea. They must have had a quite strong scaffolding or infrastructure to support it. So that meant they could project in 3 degrees. So you could have it behind you, the lights. You could have it to one side. They had some effects that could go right round as it moved, and the on what you'd say was the east side was like a small stage, not very high, sort of, I don't know, probably not a lot much more than over 1 foot. 6, something, if that, maybe off the ground. So you're almost on the same level of the group.
Would you be winding around in the dark? Would you?
You could either sit down, or you wanted to dance or stand up when the group came on. You could, because interestingly, you said about the ticket. The ticket, and I'd forgotten this, but actually, if you look in this brochure, this is a very rare thing I've got in front of me.
Greg's got a brochure here.
Yes,
I could take a photograph of that later. I've never seen anything like it.
The K4, it's the catalogue basically.
Yes.
Of the kinetic exhibition. Look, that's what was in the theatre part.
Pictures of the lights.
These are all in black and white. Sadly, originally was like that, and it tells you some blurb of the artist. And it all folds. It's done in quite an arty way. The way it folds into, it's a silvered. Which again was, a bit out state of the art stuff.
Like a pamphlet, but far better, isn't it? I mean, that's a challenge for a printer to pull off something like that. Rusty staples in the middle.
It's incredibly rare.
Yeah.
It's amazingly
unique.
Well, no, there are more. There would be, but I don't know how many have survived.
And it's also answering my question, because I was thinking, well, this is a lot to put on just for one day, but I can see here that it was the 14th right the way through to 14th of April, that is, right the way through to the 13th of May.
Yeah, so it was there for a month.
Yes.
Was that 5 weeks? Yeah, something like that.
Wow.
So the arena had these events, as you say, and this was obviously went to press, and it says there, the Pink Floyd, but or one is a list of the events that were going to happen. Les Structures Sonore were another weekend by Lazare Bachet. They were a French group that played there's a direct link with the Floyd here, because they played glass. They knew like the idea about the wine glasses. They were going to include in one of the albums. Well, that's what Lazare Bachet did. I actually bought their album. I've got their album from the time.
So I often put forward this argument that everything to do with Pink Floyd starts in 1966, 1967. You just named another thing there. If that
that's the other interesting thing.
That starts there, doesn't it? It all comes from Syd.
Yeah.
Essentially, doesn't it? And what's going on around that time, and what they're picking up, and what influences they're taking.
What I was saying was it was artistic and the audience, and because a lot of their audience, especially the early days, were very creative people, so they would know things, and so it was quite interesting. But also, he doesn't say that because they'd gone to press by then. But the Soft Machine were on another weekend.
Right. Did you see that as well?
No, I didn't see them.
They would have been good.
I really regret not having. But the other thing you have to remember, and people often forget this retrospectively, is that when you're a 15-year-old, you haven't got limitless amounts of money.
No.
And I was, not only was I into seeing the Pink Floyd, I was doing photography, I was buying other groups' records, I was all sorts of things. So, the things you didn't go to wasn't, maybe you would have gone. I did seriously cross my mind to go as well because I was interested. I did buy some of their albums subsequently, but I never saw, well, I did see the Soft Machine, but a bit later at the, but not then in that year.
Were you unusual for having these interests at your age at that time, or did you go with a friend or friends?
I only went by myself to that.
To this particular
to the
event.
K4, yeah.
Yeah.
I did have my friend Robert. We did the light show together. I came back from seeing the Pink Floyd and said, "We've got to do a light show," because it was a revelation. But about, and obviously we'll talk more about that. But just to go back to the ticket, so we get that out of the way, get the ticket out of the way.
Yes,
it's just, the ticket is extraordinary, isn't it? Have you seen one?
I saw one recently.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. I may even have one
for
buried
sale.
somewhere.
Yes.
I might have kept that because I here and there I did, but it's almost chance if it's still. But also, because I got vast amounts of stuff in such total chaos, there's still a remote chance it may still exist, which I hope it is.
Tucked away somewhere safely.
I mean, look, K4. I found that 2 years ago. I didn't realise I still had it. So that was extraordinary, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think it was 2 years, it's 3 years ago.
Yes. So you were saying inside there were banks of seats
that
you could watch. Did you sit and watch Pink
No,
Floyd, or
did.
Were you on
no,
floor?
we go back to the ticket again.
Yes. Sorry, I'm getting excited here.
It's interwoven,
Yes.
so it's relevant.
Yes.
You see, the point was that if you see here that Bruce Lacey and these humanoid robots is the consistent top act all the way through. So it says Bruce Lacey and his humanoid robot. It says that on the ticket.
Yeah.
And then the Pink Floyd is small letters underneath.
Now I've seen the robots because there's a little bit of film of them, isn't there?
Oh yeah.
Have you seen that as well?
Well, the film I might have done. I might have got the collection of Bruce Lacey's works, films. BFI did a whole box set, which I've got there over there.
Yeah. Fascinating robots.
Yeah,
a
they
little
were
bit
very
like
funny,
more interesting Daleks, if you know what I mean.
They were funny because they weren't
thinner.
They were like a sort of. He made it because I got to know Bruce. I worked with him. Talking about cycles in your life. I knew him quite well. I stayed in his place for about 2 or 3 weeks in about 3 or 4 years later. 3 years later, I would have never known that at that time. Yeah. And he was quite eccentric. He came on. He was on. As it came out, well, Pink Floyd weren't supporting him. He was the first performer or the first act, if you like. And he came on with he had remote control, and he was wearing a sort of silvered bag, like a bin liner, but. It was very eccentric.
It is April 1967, after all.
Yeah, and they were quite funny. He was always quite wacky.
Bit of humour. Yeah.
Yeah. He was in a group called the Alberts. Before them, in early 60s, and they did lots of retro sort of stuff like Victorian. So one of them played a tuba and that, and they used to do a lot of that imitation, the wackiness of Victorian life, and then he started introducing all these funny wacky things, little joke things. It was almost like musical, really, in that thing. But they had, of course, the Bonzo Dog Doodah band were very much influenced by them.
Yes.
So it was all sort of interwoven in some way. So that's quite an interesting thing to know about, really. Isn't it?
Absolutely. I can't wait any longer. I need to know about the Pink Floyd performance. Tell me about that.
Oh yeah, who were they? Oh yeah, they were amazing.
Oh yeah.
So Bruce went off, and there was an interval.
Yes.
And then I thought, for the band, I'm gonna stand up and go straight. And of course there were quite a lot of people there. I don't know how many. I think there was about 140 tickets, 50 tickets.
Oh really? Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
But you could move around. It wasn't so densely packed, like some gigs you can't. You're stuck at the back. You could go wherever you liked, So you stood in one position, and they just came on stage, in semi-darkness, and and they started off with Astronomy Domini, of course, which was the first time I'd ever heard it.
Right.
Because it wasn't, they hadn't done any radio sessions. There was at that point there wasn't any bootlegs of any sort, probably circulated. Certainly not the Floyd, and that was quite an extraordinary sort of moment because you know how it begins. It's quite dramatic, isn't it? And suddenly the light show was just like, it was like being spun into sort of the Andromeda galaxy or something. All these, because it was going right round you. It was just like physically, so like Cinerama.
Okay, so they're in front of you, and they got it behind.
Yeah, you went like so. Like the effect wasn't just most cases in theatrical proscenium, isn't it? Straight in front. This went right round you, so it was a sensory experience.
Yes,
and and obviously that's a very dramatic song anyway, isn't it?
Yeah,
it was just sort of knocked out. I mean, talking about sort of eureka moment or sort of revelation or whatever, it was that powerful.
So they did sound in the round, but that was light in the round, wasn't it? I never really thought about that.
And I don't think I've been in a similar thing ever since, really. Certainly not with a band playing. It was so out there, such a sort of a bold and experimental and sort of audacious thing to do. And as I say, it was very impressive, you can imagine.
So the light show, was it oil based, like we often say?
With like the bubbles,
look at
but
the
they look almost like stars when it sluiced round. I'm trying to describe
flashing lights as well on the band.
Well, they did. They had those ones on the lower level,
right?
So they flash up, which you've seen in films and things, and they. There'd be like that. One of them would be lit up, and the other one, and because they had the distorting shadows to some degree as well, didn't they?
Behind them, just like
and because it was from
Look of the Week.
The light was beneath them. Those look quite sinister. The big sort of like hunched figures.
Oh, absolutely.
And sort of
Dracula style.
Yeah. In fact, John May, who became he lives in Lewes now. I was talking to him when we did the show a few years ago of the 50th anniversary of the second to last gig of Syd's second to last gig. He said when he first saw the Pink Floyd, he was frightened by them. It's not. It wasn't. It was.
I suppose it could be overwhelming.
I mean, it was almost quite sinister in some ways. As you say, those images and I was into the Velvet Underground as well, and they were very similar.
Yeah.
Obviously, it was a slightly darker. I mean, the Floyd were a bit more complex, as it turns out. In terms of wasn't one take. There was other sides to them, wasn't it?
Yeah, different dimensions.
But live
shades.
way, it was quite loud,
and it was
how loud physically. Very sort of not challenging, but it would make a very big impact.
Some of the audience tapes that exist from the time, the ones later in the year, in September and November, you can barely hear the vocals. Could you hear the vocals?
Oh, of course not.
No.
But the PA systems for every band, that's another thing people don't realise. How it was pretty awful for nearly every group, really, whoever they were. The Floyd had also, I mean, it's interesting looking back how I recognise certain songs afterwards, that I remember seeing, because they had a certain sort of structure to the vocals, It's not a cut and, well, actually, it's, not cut and paste, what's the other, cut up, which apparently Syd actually was influenced. So that sort of must have fed into the way he approached things. I also think, I've got this, I don't want to go too much on a tangent, but I've got this idea that I think you can't make too little of the fact that Syd was fundamentally a visual artist.
Yes.
People forget that. They think, oh, well, he was a pot, so I did a bit of painting. I think he thought of himself the other way round, really.
Yes, he was an artist who could
and
play
he carried
guitar.
on, didn't he, to the very end, still
that
painting.
That was what he ought to be doing.
And he used,
so thinks his
and
family.
what makes it interesting is that he used what would have been painterly techniques. I went to art school myself, Lisa, but you know, but in sound, you know, he didn't follow any conventions of music as it was supposed to be. That's why I still think he was a genius, you know, because
That's really interesting. Can you explain what you mean by that a bit more?
well,
Painterly instincts in sound.
well, as I say, sometimes with a visual, you can put two unrelated images together that don't follow a logic.
So two sounds.
For example, yeah, and you might, you know, in some abstract expressionism, they'll sort of throw paint on a canvas and then maybe reorder it in some way. I'm just saying that it was you would go into contrasts and things. You see things in a different perspectives. You know, it's not like. I think some more sort of what is conventional music has more of a sort of a certain sort of it exists on one plane, if you like.
You know the plot. There's a structure there, whereas perhaps less. There's a plot and a structure with conventional music.
Yeah, too.
It's so much less predictable.
No, and the crucial thing about Syd was that he didn't like rules. Which is why I really identified with him as well.
Yeah.
Because he said, well, I'll do this. Well, who says you can't do this, you know? You know, why can't we put sounds of ducks or something going quack, 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 quack?
Indeed,
or whatever
ringing
it might
bell.
be.
Yes.
And he would always come up with the left of centre idea. I think, I don't know, I was never with the Floyd, but I felt in many ways they were running to keep up with him all the time.
I was going to say, did Syd feel like the leader?
Oh,
that day?
Well, he was so artistic, there's no doubt about it.
But visually, was he the leader as well? I mean,
No. That's the paradox.
They look like equals.
Well, it was all sort of underplayed, wasn't it? I mean, a lot of people didn't know what they looked like, did they, for years?
No.
So it goes because they were always playing in this confusing semi-darkness with flashing lights. The only person that spoke, of course, was Roger. He announced between
he announced the songs.
He was always the only one that spoke. Nobody else ever spoke, did they?
He made
Certainly
it his
not in
job.
the early days.
No, it was a rarity. When you hear it on audience tapes, when Gilmour talks later on, it's almost as though he's being a bit naughty speaking up there because that's what Roger does.
Yeah,
Back off, Gilmour.
No, it was. I mean, he was definitely the one that introduced things all the way along. Certainly through. Well, as we know, I mean, he's not backwards and coming forwards, is he? And he did all the interviews, nearly all the interviews at one point, didn't he? It was largely him that was speaking.
Do you recall what they were wearing? Funny question. Do you recall what the band were wearing?
Yeah, well, I Syd was wearing some sort of. I might have been satin. As far as my memory, exists. It was a sort of creamy satin, sort of piratey type shirt, and velvet trousers.
Right.
But not blue velvet.
No.
Red velvet trousers. And he concentrated on playing and singing. He didn't interact with the audience. Was he quite shy really? I don't know. That was the impression.
Focused on his music.
Yeah.
So he wasn't animated on stage.
No, it was always impassive really. In my experience, but that was almost a Warholian thing, wasn't it? It was quite, in a way, that was okay then. In a sort of avant-garde group, is not to be wanting the audience to be too receptive, or caring what the audience thought or whatever.
Yeah,
it's quite complicated to think about, but yeah.
Yeah, people didn't appreciate overplaying in that way, I suppose, did they?
Yeah. Well, like the lead guitar solo or whatever.
Yeah.
Didn't it?
Yeah.
I mean,
we had Hendrix doing that, obviously.
Yeah. Well, because they did a tour with him, didn't they? Which I saw them on as well. That was quite a contrast, but. Different. Although they started off as a rhythm and blues band, they soon went way beyond that. It was probably one of those inspirational things you can't completely explain. My feeling is that Syd was being such a creative person that it was like the runaway train really. Once he had so many really amazing ideas, and he said some people reckon he was a bit like I think Dougie Field said that he was like toothpaste or tube of paint, you squeeze it all out, and he squeezed out all that amazing creative potential and mental energy in a relatively short period
Very
of time.
short period of time. Yeah.
I mean, it's just extraordinary to think he'd come and gone in the band within, in their public life.
Within a year.
Yeah,
effectively.
And if anything, in some ways, he was already sort of half going about after 6 months or 4 or 5 months.
And
in '67, in the year of '67.
the more we reflect on the interviews from that time in books like Ed's, you can see that overwhelmingly that he was already checking out by the summer. It had gone beyond.
Yeah,
the
well,
point where he was enjoying
I saw
it,
them
it
a few,
ceased to be
as you
fun.
know, I saw them a few times. I saw them more at the end of the year. There was a little bit of a gap when I didn't get to see them in the summer. But I look back and I find that they were. I couldn't have seen them because they were too far away, either abroad or up north or something. And I
And
missed.
they travelled a lot, didn't they?
Well, I think that was
Until
another
they
thing
came
that
back.
broke him, wasn't it?
Yeah.
He was not. The others, I'll tell you later on possibly, but the others I always think were a totally different character in general. They came from different sort of backgrounds well, not backgrounds. They came from a different metal, to physically and mentally probably, and they were suited obviously for their big careers they had afterwards for what they did.
So you were hooked. You were hugely impressed.
Well, I was going to say there were other numbers I remember from the gig. Matilda Mother, I was saying about the shaping of the vocals. Now that was very distinctive there because obviously Rick Wright actually sung some of it and he was playing the organ and I was standing next to him. And I've got a very distinct memory of watching Rick Wright sing, the lines he sings from Matilda Mother. And he was wearing a little shirt with little tiny paisley type flowers on it. Because I was literally standing 3 feet away. I mean, it was easy. I could,
Gosh.
You're funny.
We need a camera inside your memory at the moment.
Well, yes, with the brain cells could be extracted.
Yeah.
And and there was there's this moment when there was a blue splurge from the light show, liquid light show, that went right across him. Like someone had thrown a giant pot of paint over him or something. Because it was very intense images. Because also the projectors weren't that far away. They were only about sort of 25 feet away or something.
Okay.
So you've got, especially with those 1,000-watt bulbs, it was very intense. So it wasn't just like something just floating over. It was sort of, it was like they were taken over by it in a way.
So, excuse my naive question, but the projectors, 25 foot, 30 foot away, they're above them.
Yes, it's all
angling,
down.
It's all angling down.
Yeah.
Basically. But then they're also managing to go round the room as well. You said, is it as though they were rotating the projections in order to cover all the surfaces?
They may have had, as it appears, they might have had two with the same effect on, and it goes zoom, dum dum.
Yes.
They obviously planned certain things. I'm just thinking, back in my memory, because obviously I haven't done light shows myself.
I was about to say, you would understand how you might
but of course,
that
would have been a demanding thing because normally you would just, you've got just straight in front of you, maybe sort of, I don't know, 45 degrees at the most, not 100, 360.
Do you remember any of the other songs they played?
Lucifer's Sound, I'm sure they played, because that riff is very distinctive. I think that was like second or third, like it is on the album. That was fairly early on. And also I remember that, probably that's why I remember it in some ways, because I was standing underneath the platform of the projection platform. And there were, of course, this is the other thing I was saying about the fan base. There was a lot of people that had come down from London, the latest...
Made the journey.
The latest, hippest, trendiest people. And they looked different as well, because they were wearing Indian dress. The girls were wearing maybe Indian dresses and ethnic jewellery, and people had bells and, and velvet jacket. They were a lot different to what you would have seen, even in Brighton, which is a little bit hipper, always has been, but it was a notice code, and you could smell you could smell hashish as well, like the sweet smell of
It's a
hashish.
really quite exotic feeling.
Well, that hadn't
To a
encountered that
15-year-old,
either. You know,
yes,
they'd been
yeah.
obviously they smoked a bit of that, and you know, and some of the girls. I remember this girl with right in this Indian dress, and she to the smell of jasmine wafted across as well. A very sensory experience every way, and of course you could almost hear close by the jangling of the bells as they were dancing in time. So a very strong riff like Lucifer Sam, you know,
Yeah.
and there was that great sequence, which of course they extended everything as they always did.
Yeah.
It wasn't just
It's
like the short
improvisation.
version you
Yes.
see on or hear on the album or on a single, and so yeah, I'm sure that was probably what they were dancing to then. Yeah.
Interstellar Overdrive,
know,
did they
of course,
play that?
yeah, of course, yeah. And maybe because I can realize it was quite an overwhelming experience. So you get sort of vignettes or the odd snapshots that you remember certain things. But I wouldn't have been surprised if they'd use one or two, cosmic or sort of astronomical illusions and that light show. You know, I did myself when I did, and later on I got, so yeah. I mean, it's as I say, if you could go in a time machine. But it was amazing. It was like a tsunami of sensory experiences, and you couldn't, especially even if you were open to it, you couldn't imagine. It's difficult to describe, especially people are less visually sophisticated now as well. I mean, then rather than now,
Yes.
because it was the other way. That's the other thing about the context. That weird sound, those amazing images, that things they'd never ever seen before. When I started doing a light show with a local group, even 2 years later, I remember we used to go to like local villages and things, and it was like going to an African village or something.
Yeah.
You think you were like magicians or godlike.
Exposing them to madness.
Open-mouthed. You
Yes.
cannot imagine that sort of. The impact, as I say, is difficult to imagine retrospectively now because everybody's blasé about everything, aren't they? Really?
Yeah. Goodness me. It must have been just so extraordinary.
Well, I
So
said for me,
life-changing.
it was a life-changing experience. It was a revelation, really, literally. And I will say it did change my life because I'd wanted to go to art school before that. I was wanted to be a graphic designer. I thought because I was quite into advertising and I still find that quite interesting.
You could have been an album cover designer or something like that.
Well,
perhaps.
yeah, I liked advertising because
Right.
I'm also interested in the language, and that's how. I mean, I won't digress now, as famously as I do, but I ended up in this group, Coon Transmissions, and Foxtrot Echo was my identity in that group, and some of my advertising interests or inclinations were sort of perverted or
expression.
distorted or
Yes.
used in that in another way. So it was quite. As I say, I'm still interested in graphics. Like, what one to say? I've got this new, fantastic, stunning new medium. It was when I eventually did go to art school. I was still too far ahead. They didn't have any courses in it.
No.
So I did a foundation year at St Martin's in London, and then there weren't any other courses to go on to because they didn't exist.
Nobody had thought of it yet.
No.
Too early.
Although you were supposed to be creative, not that creative.
Yes.
You had to
There are limits.
you had to stick to painting
Yes.
or sculpture. You had to stick to a specific category.
Yeah.
Of course, it's changed subsequently, but then it was as I say, a different world. But as I say, we just started doing the light show after that. I'd done with my friend, and so we borrowed the school geography masters Aldous 1000, Tutor 1000, which there was the same sort of projector used at schools and universities at the time, and the Floyd used in their light show.
Yeah.
1,000. Well, they had an example in the exhibition at the V&A,
Yes.
on the Floyd.
Yeah. It was good to see that part of it, wasn't it? I took a picture of that.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah. So one stagger out onto the.
I was going to say, what do you do at the end of that? You're back out into the
It's a sort of
normal
stunned
world.
is the word.
Yes.
Yeah, I suppose dazed and confused possibly.
Yeah.
No, but and it was Syd became my hero. You see, he was like an icon of symbolic of wayward creativity, and he should be a saint. Perhaps they'll canonise it. Saint of creativity or whatever. I mean, obviously he paid the price in some ways, which has became part of the fascination people had with him, like all those romantic poets, you know.
Yeah, he's like a young Wordsworth or something like that at that point, isn't he? He was at his peak.
Well, yeah, it's probably Byron-esque. Well, he looked more like Byron, didn't he, with the curl, browny curly hair. It was,
and his pirate style shirt.
But he was quite literary as well, Syd, wasn't he? Which is quite interesting. He was quite well read. It was like he made loads of references, obviously, in a lot of their work.
His lyrics and so on, not least Piper at the Gates of Dawn. So it took until September for you to see them again because of circumstances.
Yeah, because what I was alluding to earlier, there was a gap probably because I think in retrospect you think, why didn't I see them? But they didn't play locally.
Yeah.
And there weren't any festivals in those days, you see. Sometimes in the summer you got to see people later on, a few years later. You would have seen, I did see the Floyd, as you would get round to, in a festival. So the next time was in Worthing.
Yeah, 21st of September at the Assembly Hall.
Yeah.
Tell me about that building. I've never been there.
Well, it's a sort of 1930. I think it was built in the 1930s. A sort of a solid, sort of angular sort of building. And we lived sort of east of Brighton, so we had quite an effort to get there. I think we had to get 2 buses or.
So you're talking we now. So you didn't go to this one on your
this
own?
one was with my friend Bobby.
Yeah.
Who was. Now we were doing the light show together. He was a big Hendrix fan, and he actually. He was onto Hendrix, but I found the Floyd and he found Hendrix, in our personal world.
Yeah, perfect for later in the year, but at this point,
Yeah. So he went to see, he heard about, through another friend, they heard that there was a new guy from America, Hendrix, playing in Worthing in January, 67. And he went off to see that, and he came back raving about how fantastic he was. And I don't know if he had Hey Joe out by then or not, but he was just very much new on the scene. So he came. I say we. So we both went to Worthing. But I say again, it was a big effort. The other thing it wasn't like getting in your car and then driving off like you would now. When you're younger, it took. And then when it finished, you have to catch a last boat.
Yeah.
Sometimes we had to walk back.
Right.
After we saw Hendrix at the university, we had to walk 5 miles home because we couldn't get back any other way because it was too late to get. But it was worth it.
It's worth it, yeah, undoubtedly.
So we're going to I want me to tell you about.
Yeah, so you're in this 1930s building this time. Quite a contrast, I can imagine, to being on the Pier. Yeah,
well, the Pier was like the best ever gig ever.
Yeah.
The best ever gig. I don't know how you say. But by then, of course, they were quite popular because they'd had see Emily play out and lots more people would.
Piper at the Gates of Dawn was out.
So we got there and we made a point of being really close to the stage, and you had to stand for a while to make sure you were near them, that sort of. And I put myself directly in front of Syd.
Okay, so how tall is the stage? Is the stage?
That was quite high, that one.
Quite high.
I sort of, I don't know. It was more of a sort of
shoulder
conventional.
height to you?
4 feet,
Yeah.
Sort of conventional theatre stage height, I suppose. But I was in a very good position. So I was literally about 5 feet away from Syd Barrett.
Wow.
When he came on stage.
You lined yourself up perfectly.
Yeah, now what happened in the meantime was they got a business, got some success with See Emily Play. So what was good there was that they'd been able to afford new equipment.
Watkins
stuff.
Yeah,
Watkins had all these big, large PA speakers and that. The trouble was it was so bloody loud. It was so really loud that in a way you couldn't quite hear what was.
You didn't need to be at the front for those purposes.
It made it even worse.
Yeah.
I mean, what I have to say I had to do is in order to hear the words that they were singing, you had to put both your palms up against your ears and press them really hard.
Right.
And then you might stand a chance of being able to
Working
hear
out.
some of the vocals, because the rush of sound from that volume of stuff, and everybody got so taken away. They're all over turning all the volumes up. Everybody, wasn't it, the Cream were doing that.
Yeah.
Now they could do it. Before they couldn't. They went overdid it, you know.
Yeah.
Made a load of people go deaf, probably.
Probably, yeah. Tinnitus later on.
And so they played the sort of the songs you would expect them to play, you know. They didn't usually play their singles, of course, as we know. But so it would be Interstellar Overdrive, but what was very odd this time was that Syd wasn't. I didn't see him sing.
Right.
He was playing. He was standing in front of the microphone, like not a marionette, but he was like standing there. He was actually playing.
Okay.
But it's
He
still
played his part.
one
on the
presumes,
guitar,
yeah.
yeah.
But he was looking unblinking straight into this sort of spotlight or whatever the light was.
Right.
You know, I did actually do some drawings, inspired by him afterwards. You know, because it was such an extraordinary sort of experience. Because he didn't seem to be blinking. Perhaps he was tripping. I'm sure he was.
Yeah.
But it was seen almost beyond that as well. He was playing like, you know, not also robotic fashion, but sort of like, you know, up down, you know.
Yeah.
You know. I mean, he was basically a rhythm guitarist.
Yeah. And quite still as well. He wasn't jumping on the spot or anything like that.
No, he didn't move hardly at all. He just sort of be rooted to the spot.
Because I've seen him playing in that style with, like you're describing, with the sort of like up, down style, and some UFO footage, which hasn't done the rounds yet. But at the same time, he's also jumping with it. So it's as though that's how he
he's a bit more animated. Well, I don't think he was on that occasion.
No,
I think they were having.
He's looking into the distance. He's
I think
people.
the date of that is September, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
I think they were beginning to have trouble with him. Probably
21st of September. Well, we've got the audience recording from the 13th of September, and that's pretty good.
He's playing everything.
He's pretty, yeah.
Well, I think
he's
he probably
involved.
must have been playing that to some degree. As I say, it was exacerbated by the fact that the volume was so much you couldn't hear what it was a lot of the time. So it's like sort of like you were like a sea of sound, if you like. But I do remember particularly that gig was when they did, because Roger was making announcements between each song, and then he said, "This is a song about a dead person." And then it was they were playing
Old Woman with a Casket.
they were playing Scream Thou Last
Yes.
Scream, yeah.
Yeah.
With the casket, and what was although apparently because Syd actually sings on the recorded versions of that, and he did on what's the name, Top Gear. He didn't sing there. That on that occasion, it was the vocals were mostly between Roger and Rick,
Right.
and but I think what's his name was supposed to sing. I said what's his name, Nick Mason. Nick Mason was supposed to sing it, wasn't he, on the original concept of the album? But
Perhaps not while he's drumming at the same time.
yeah. So probably live he can't do that.
Yeah.
So they had to sing it, you know, and so. But Syd didn't play. He did play, but he didn't. Who knows what he played? Maybe he was playing the same note. Maybe they thought, oh God, you know, there was too many variables, so we better. They prepared it that way. He didn't he just stopped singing when he was supposed to be singing. He just wasn't. They thought he's not going to do it, so we'll have an alternative, you know.
Which
well,
was
that's my
beginning to be
theory
the issue.
anyway.
And you had to have your hands over your ears in order.
No,
to
I
be able
did,
to
and
hear
I listened to the
hear
words.
those
Yeah.
Words.
Because I thought, well, this is because I was into the idea of the song. It sounded really interesting because we hadn't heard about much new material.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we'd had Piper come out, but then we'd heard some of those tracks as well on Top Gear and things, and so there was less surprises. But the fact there was going to be a new phase was particularly intriguing.
Yes. Material for the next album, perhaps.
Yeah,
was the
yeah,
potential
or the
at
next
time.
single, because that
Yes.
was the big question. They weren't, because they hadn't CM Pay had come out. That was
Succeeded it.
before they were looking for a single, weren't they? At that time in September. But I see that big thing that stays to my memory, that gig, was Syd's sort of the infinite sort of black hole of his eyes, which obviously gets. I got rather obsessed with it, myself. And funnily enough, came like two dark holes in the sky or whatever.
Yeah.
It got referenced later on as well. But I remember having that reaction myself.
You certainly weren't the only person to observe it, were you?
Yeah. But I've got it. I can prove what I said as well, because I've got some periods sketchbooks from back there.
Yes.
With still of my
You've
own.
got those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm not making it up retrospectively.
No, absolutely not. Wow. Well, we're getting ahead at quite a pace here. Should we go on to the next concert?
Yeah, if you like.
Yes, it's not long afterwards. That was the 6th of October. So only a few weeks later, you were at Miss Teenage Brighton contest.
Oh yeah,
Which
well,
makes me feel like there was young women walking around in bikinis.
Yeah, of course. Interesting combination. Well, it was. I think it was done for a local charity somehow at the King's West Centre. And in those days, they used the top rank was in the. They got rid of it subsequently years later, but they used to have that. It was like in a big arena, and there was a second sort of like a circle around the top, which is incidentally where the light show where Win Wilson was projecting from.
Is this a daytime concert?
No, it's early evening.
It's early evening.
And I've showed you a ticket before, haven't I? Do you remember one torn in half?
I think you did, yes.
Yeah,
years ago.
and I think it's probably unique, this ticket, because it was an old school doorman, and as we went in, he literally tore one half the ticket away and threw it in a dustbin.
We'd want
And
that
I
dustbin
kept
now,
my
wouldn't we?
half because
Yes.
I was such a dedicated follower. So, but most people probably threw theirs. Oh, it's torn in half and
Yes,
throw it away.
useless by that stage.
And luckily, my bit's got all the essential details on it as well. But it was done, and there were when you went. So the evening was basically every gig there. This which is quite bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah.
There was a Sid Dean band. They had a sort of long-term contract. They were like a conventional dance band, old school dance band. You would have done the foxtrot and the cha-cha or whatever. And there was about 16 of them, and they do the first set. They were like the support band. These guys in sort of these tuxedos and saxophones and stuff.
Yeah.
And there was a group as well. It was a local group that I think that they played.
Omega Plus.
Yeah.
Omega Plus.
Yeah. And yes, I don't remember them. And of course I think I can't remember whether or not the Miss Teenage Brighton happened. It happened before they played,
Right.
And they obviously Rick was one of the judges.
Yeah.
He must have taken the short straw. Well, Sid definitely wasn't going to do it. And Roger probably said, I'm not going to be doing
Not
that.
going to lower myself to
because
that.
being the Marxist he was, even in those days, because he must have been, because his Jude was in the Revolutionary Communist Party, wasn't she? Yeah. I think, or was it the Workers' Revolutionary Party? So one of those extreme left.
Sounds like a Monty Python film, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, it always was. Anyway, so they had the Miss Teenage Brighton contest, and all these girls with bikinis coming and parading along the stage. One of whom I knew, I was at school with, Sandy Straw, her name was. And she did she used to enter a few of these. She ended up later in life running a fancy dress costume shop in the centre of Brighton, in the North Lanes in Brighton. I talked to her about the old days once or twice. I haven't seen her for a long time now, but yeah, it was. But she was one of the contestants. And anyway, I think she came third or fourth or something.
Oh, well, at
She
least she
didn't
wasn't
win.
last.
No, but on that one, I think she managed to win one or two. And then when the winner was there, because Rick got a kiss from the winner, didn't he? And I think he may have got a kiss from the runner-up, and then And you know, he's quite a shy guy, really, isn't
Yeah,
he?
couldn't imagine him throwing himself.
And then,
into
of course,
that.
we went into the actual set. You know, the band started playing, and I was quite far away on that occasion because I was up in the circle. It was quite busy. It was quite a lot of people anyway. But because I was into the light show, I thought this is an unusual opportunity. I could go and see how he does it.
Right,
So I was standing next to Win Wilson, watching how he did the business with. He had two Aldous projectors and this sandwich of various oil liquids, and in a blowtorch, and he'd.
Yeah.
Through the fire regulations.
I was going to say pretty dangerous.
Yeah,
but he knew what he was doing.
To make it, warm it up every now and then, so they jumped about a bit.
Yeah.
And then obviously they would have had, I think they had their things on the stage as well.
Was it a revolving stage?
Yeah. Because they came round like in...
London Palladium.
Yeah. That was the other funny characteristic. I mean, it was that's a very memorable gig because it was so bizarre.
Yeah.
And I have never met anybody else that remembers being there so far.
No.
But it was certainly one. But the other thing about the music, of course, was that because it was such a poppy thing, they really must have been browbeaten into actually doing their singles, you see.
Oh, I see, yeah.
They certainly did see Emily play, which I only ever heard once at any of the times I saw them.
Yeah.
They didn't like to do that, did they?
No, not their thing. But I suppose
they could do it because we've heard other long extended versions, but not many. Are there?
There must have been a reluctant playing to the fans and reluctant gig all round. Doesn't really sound like their scene at all, does it?
No. Because it was very well, they were doing loads of untypical gigs, weren't they, in 1967, and some of them must have been terrible. I mean, they were okay if they were an art college or a university or something, but having to go and play in some rugby club or something like that, they did one or two really extreme things up north, didn't they? And
they got
Wales.
Stuff chucked at them and so on. So you recall them playing the singles? Did they play Astronomy, Domine, and Interstellar?
I think they nearly always did, didn't they? It was their staple for forever, really. I mean, they even did it in latter days, didn't they, in the 90s?
So I'm imagining Miss Teenage Brighton attracting quite a lot of sensible local people who want to see how their daughter, their niece, and so on is going to get on an occasion like this. Not a typical Floyd audience. No,
probably
not. Like you were describing
I think
on the West Pier.
It was much more of a general audience, probably in that sense. I mean, there would have been people, and there would probably be snobby students that wouldn't go to the top ranked suite in there because most of the time they'd be
not cool enough.
It wouldn't, But again, it's just the social order of, the divisions and things. That, again, is another thing one forgets about, years later. But it's something to think about, as you suggest.
It might have been a bit strange compared to the other gigs. And the next one you saw, because we're still in 67 here.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Is the Hendrix tour.
Oh, yeah. So, well, we're very, very much looking forward to that. You can imagine it was a fantastic bill, wasn't it? For 12 and 6, which is, I looked it up, and it's still cheap.
Yeah.
Sounds ridiculous now, doesn't it? 60p or something. Yeah. But it's not really 60p. But even in contemporary terms, it's £18 to see Jimi Hendrix, Pink Floyd, Move, The Nice, what was it? Ira Apparent, and was it Outer Limits? Or something?
Yeah.
I think
just about everybody you could hope to see on a night.
I mean, how could they? And they did 2 shows as well.
Yeah, and you were at the second show.
Yeah, the second. I think we had a choice, and we thought, well, let's go. It was going to be the climax, isn't it? It seems a bit wrong if it's going to be another one after. So.
And this was at the Dome.
Yeah, which was a place that Floyd visited many times.
Yeah, they kept going back, didn't they?
In fact, I saw Nick Mason's band there.
Yeah, so
a few years ago. Yeah. Again. Just to compare, and they said on the last time he played here was Nick played here was, and it was probably back in the 70s.
Yeah,
because they were too big after that, weren't they?
Yeah, 72. So just 3 songs: Interstellar Overdrive, Set the Controls, and Power Talk H.
Yeah, well, that obviously, I've got a photograph of him playing, as Syd Barrett playing at that one.
This is where my jaw drops.
Yeah,
Is
and he
this
was
your
wearing
first-
a green shirt, by
Is
the
this
way.
your first Syd photograph that you took? Had you taken one before that?
Well, no.
You didn't obviously have a camera back
Well,
in
no, it
April.
wouldn't have worked. It was like taking a photograph in the dark, wasn't it?
It
Because
was.
the lights were flash.
You could have
if
taken
it's
a
bit
black and white
distance,
shot, perhaps.
And my friend had his camera, you see, and we shared that. And he took some of them, and I took some of them.
And this,
Although I was into photography, I think it didn't occur to me to take my camera because I knew, normally speaking, it would be hopeless, because especially. But he didn't think like that, and you can't really take a flash.
This is Bobby you're talking about, is it?
Yeah,
as in
Bobby.
your
Yeah,
friend?
we were.
So Bobby and you shared a camera at this
Yeah,
concert.
Instamatic, you see.
Oh, so quite a basic camera.
Yeah, amazingly, he got
Yeah.
some reasonable photos. In fact, there were other ones of the Floyd, which have gone astray, which is tragic, because one of them was a really good image as well of the light show with like Roger Waters hunched over with a big distorted shadow.
So,
And
sorry, just to catch on that, you've got one photo of
that seems to
that
be
concert?
one of at the moment. It
it's
may
unpublished, I think, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Have you got it here?
No, I haven't because I can't
No.
find it again. But it'll be in a file. There's a certain section of my memorabilia that's all mixed up because I
Right.
moved, as I've probably explained
Yeah,
to you,
you
about
keep
3 or
things
4
in
times.
storage, don't
Not
you?
through my choice. So things, is it here and there? A lot of things are kept, but I can see it in my mind's eye. But
Wow.
it will. I wouldn't. It wouldn't. It'll be somewhere relatively safe.
I
But,
think people would love to see that picture.
oh yeah, he's sort of standing again, looking down, and his hair slightly. There's some story about him having his hair, him putting mandrax
Oh, yeah,
paste
Brill
on his
cream
hair,
and
or
all
something.
of that,
But his
yeah.
hair does almost. It's more sort of flattened down, and it's not like the sort of Afro-y style hairstyle. It's more flattened down even at that gig.
Yeah.
Perhaps he had a thing, and I think they just did those 3 numbers, as you say, and
Yeah.
of course why they did those, because they only had a short set, didn't they? It was only 20 minutes or something.
Something like that.
Yeah, it was because
Yeah.
there was all the other bands, 24. So they did Astronomy, Domini, and because Roger Waters set the controls, and I think they could limp through if Syd decided not to play.
Yeah.
They could limp through them and still get away with it, with the
Yeah.
organ and the bass guitar and the drums.
Make
Because
enough of
obviously the
sound.
Nice were basically that, weren't they?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, anything else that required his vocals or anything too complicated, they had to avoid. So they stuck with those.
So there was a light show. Did
Yeah,
they have
the
their
light
regular
shows. I
light
say
show?
that there was that great image, and
Yeah.
it must have been from the circle. We were down in the. That's the other point. We were down in the stalls.
Yeah.
About I think row 12, 8, 10, 12, something like
Have you
that.
got the ticket?
I don't know.
Did you buy the programme?
It may turn up as well.
Yeah.
Another thing.
Yeah.
There's a few things that have been filed away somewhere so safe you can't find them again in
They
there.
need to be preserved, don't they?
Yeah. I mean, we got my friend Bobby. When we left, because obviously Hendrix was on the bill as well. It was a fantastic evening, you can imagine. He got the poster from the thing outside. It was a cabinet and it didn't have any glass in it. So next time we took it back on the bus, like in the
Wow.
back of,
Wow.
the big full format poster. You
Yeah.
usually only see the handbills, don't you?
Yeah.
And it still exists because
Yeah.
his son's got it, and
Has
he's
Bobby kept his stuff like you've kept your stuff?
well, yeah, his Hendrix things.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah,
Has he got Floyd stuff or is it just Hendrix stuff?
Well, he had the odd photos, but he didn't see them as many times as me.
No.
And as I said, we had and I don't think he got to see Hendrix that many times because he was doing all these American tours and stuff afterwards. He hardly was, and he came, and then he got a job, and and he did work abroad for a while. So I don't, sadly for him, I don't know if he got to see his big hero again.
So still a great impression being made, but you made an interesting point about in September, obviously Syd looking off into the distance and
Well, straightforward, yeah.
Yeah, the
To eternity,
the staring
almost.
eyes. Did you sense that he was any better when you saw him at the Hendrix tour, or about the same?
As I say, he was always slightly withdrawn, but he was always looked like he was looking at the floor, all right, and sort of just looking at his guitar like that. If you see the photograph, he was pretty much like that all evening. It wasn't like he had different positions, you know. So I only took, I think it was me. I think I took that one, you know, because we shared the camera. You know, I only took that one. I thought there's no point trying another one because it'd be exactly the same. It'd just be.
Do you remember feeling concerned about Syd at the time?
Oh yeah, I think there were rumours beginning to. Well, there were certainly about that tour,
wasn't there?
No,
there was reports in the press about them having to have a break due to nervous exhaustion and the like. But as somebody going to the gigs, did you feel a sense of anticipation, thinking, I wonder how Syd's going to be at this gig?
Well, yeah. So, I mean, there was that. Yeah, I said there was, because there had been that story about Davey O. List having to deputise for them in Liverpool, wasn't it, or something? And I was wondering, would he be there at all?
Yeah.
And in a way, he was, but he wasn't, probably. Because again, with the sound, I mean, can we hear a guitar? Can we not hear a guitar?
Yeah. We've been so loud. Was it as loud as
no, it wasn't as
previous
loud,
concerts?
but it was loud enough, probably.
Yeah.
And because it was a big sensory assault, the Floyd performance always, with the light show and that. It's not like when that's your sole focus when you just look at the group and you can hear the sound. When it's all these weird visuals going on there.
It's all going on.
So you get to respond to the shape of the number, you know, or the piece of music.
19th of January, 1968.
Oh, yeah.
It's your 5-man concert.